Hello friends, my name is Pete. My ham radio call sign is K7PP. And we're here tonight for another installment of my HQ129X restoration video. You might have looked at the first one, if you could stay awake through the whole thing. And if you did, it was pretty much devoted to technical restoration, getting the unit working, removing some modifications. And this second installment is mostly to do with aesthetics and a little bit of extra repair. We have a third installment down the road, probably in a few months, having to do with alignment. But we pretty much have the unit done and ready to go, so I'm going to let you take a look at what we've recently accomplished and what the final product is ending up looking like. So sit back and enjoy. Hopefully.
Well, as we're continuing on with the actual refurbishment of this Hammarlund receiver, the HQ129X, we've recently received the cabinet back from a friend that does much better painting than I do, and kind of difficult to see, but the guy actually really spent quite a time with a wire brush trying to get all of the rust out, and put several decent coats of flat black on it, and seemed like it turned out pretty well. I don't really see any more traces of the bad paint that was on there, and he must have used a lot of elbow grease, but here it is. This is the repainted, cleaned up cabinet that we'll be using on the 129. As you can see, we're down to the removal of the front panel. Front panel seemed to really suffer a considerable amount of abuse over the years, or maybe let's just call it wear and tear. Pretty excessive wear and tear. One of the reasons I purchased this particular unit was because of the dials. As you can see, we've removed the front panel here a little bit earlier, but I wanted you to see what was involved. And primarily the dial I'm really interested in was this one right here. And if you look closely, you notice that it's got a 15 meter band on it. All of the earlier models do not. And you'll also notice that these dials don't have any yellowing at all. So just the dials alone, to me, were worth the price of the receiver. And in fact, originally that's why I purchased it. The front bezel, if you will, looks like it's pretty much cast in brass. And I'm starting to wonder now if it wouldn't be fun to just completely remove all of the paint and polish the brass. So we might just do that. It might make the unit unique, and certainly wouldn't look bad, and it would be a stock part. So when you're removing this particular part on the radio, the only thing that connects it to the panel are these little studs. And the studs are nothing more than just a little protrusion that takes one of these flanges that are very, very, very difficult to get off. I worked for quite a while trying to get them off, and succeeded in breaking two of them, but I didn't break the studs that they secure to on the back of the plate. So fortunately, we lucked out there. When we reattached this to the new front cover, I had given some thought as to how I was going to do it, and what I think I'm going to do is simply drop a hex nut over the stud and secure it with some either epoxy or clear nail polish. If I ever have to take it off again, or if somebody needs to take it off to service the meter, all I have to do is give the nut a half turn, and it'll just come right off. Or at least that's the thought. So anyway, we'll see how the front cover thing works out. I'm really not sure how I would duplicate the sandy crinkle finish. I suppose they have paint that you can get mixed that would do that, but boy, I'm sure thinking that perhaps a smooth polished brass look might look pretty good. So we're going to look into it at least. May not end up doing it, but we're going to look into it. Well, I took a great deal of care to remove the meter, and it certainly looks like the meter has yellowed in the areas exposed to light. It looks like the actual tone of the meter was considerably lighter initially, but the numbers look good. And the actual meter itself, it's just a simple D'Arsenval movement. Appears to be in really, really good shape, so that's very fortunate from that aspect. So we're going to reuse the meter and remount everything back the way we got it, and hopefully get plenty more years of operational life out of it. I was thinking about replacing the plastic numbered meter, but I believe this is going to suffice and probably look okay. The 129X certainly has an odd meter housing. You can see that it's kind of flanged and has a band that goes around it that's tightened down to hold it in place. And again, we'll probably reuse this. The glass is in good shape, and we'll just give it a really thorough cleaning from the inside and out. One of the things that I'm still kind of thinking about is the plastic on the front. As you can see, it's yellowed. We'll make an attempt to clean it and see if it'll clean up. And if it won't, I may go ahead and try and see if I can't duplicate the lens. I know others have done that, and I still am a little bit undecided about how much of a restoration I'm going to do, whether it's going to be just a refurbishment or a complete resto. It's a receiver that I want to look nice on the outside, but I'm not really particularly worried about the inside as long as it's clean, electrically safe, and electrically functional, and presentable. So kind of that's what we're after. There's certainly many things that we could do with metal polish and a toothbrush, and we've done that with other receivers, but I think with this particular one we just want to get an operational AM receiver and have it look nice. The knobs, boy, Hammerlin knobs. I don't know where they came up with these things, but the next series of knobs on the you know, the 180s and the 170s and so forth look so much better. And my other Hammerlin 129X, I did opt to go to that style of knob and find it much nicer to use when you're tuning up and down the band. We'll probably go ahead and reuse the knobs, the regular knobs, so it'll maintain a stock look, or relatively stock look, and we've had real good luck just running those through the dishwasher. So we've got all the parts saved up here, and hopefully I won't have too many left over when I reassemble it. Just thought I would share the fact that we're working on the dials here a little bit, and I'm just using Windex. And as you can see, I started in one corner just to make sure I didn't remove the numbers. Wouldn't that be my luck? But anyway, as you can see, the Windex does a really good job. It seems to be gentle enough, and the dirt seems to be disappearing quite easily without having to do much rubbing. So we'll finish off the dials here and hopefully end up with some nice clear white dials. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier was that shortly after I made the last video, I noticed that the manual AVC and BFO switch has become intermittent. And I suppose that's par for the course on an old radio like this, so I thought I'd just dig in there and repair it. Well, not so fast. Turns out that this is the can that contains the switch, and here's the switch right here. So what that means is I can't get at it from underneath the chassis like some of the others down here. I've got to take the can off the chassis and then go inside and remove the switch and all the associated wires and so forth. It's in the same can as the beat frequency oscillator coil and capacitor adjustment. So, I mean, I really didn't want to do it. I tried some deoxit and so forth, and it soaked in really good, and I cleaned it up and ran the switch back and forth a couple of dozen, 100 times, and guess what? It made it worse. So I got to take this can off the chassis. To do that, I've got to disconnect all the wires that go to the BFO module, and all the wires that go to the ABC manual BFO switch. So I suppose this is a good exercise in what it calls to get really into the radio, but it needs to be done, and I've got some time to do it because the front panel escutcheon is out being sandblasted and polished. So we're going to take this puppy off and see what we can find inside, and at the same time we'll have an opportunity to put brand new wiring in it, so maybe we'll make the best of this unpleasant chore. Well, I kind of jumped ahead here. I'm hard at it. Took the shield can off of the beat frequency oscillator section right here, and I've gone down here and started clipping wires like crazy. And if you look very, very carefully down here in the corner, you'll be able to see a stud that sticks up that has a nut on it. That's one of the retainers for the can. Here's another stud down right here that has another lock washer still left on it. I don't know how I missed that, but I always have parts left over. There we go. So now we just lost a lock washer. I'll find it. But anyway, we're going to remove that can and see if we can't get the wires and so forth off the switch, and maybe put some new ones on and rethread everything back in after we've repaired the switch. And we've got the can removed. I'm going to try and see if I can't get you a picture down inside here. There we go. There's the pesky switch, and right next to it is a circuit board with a few components mounted on it and the beat frequency oscillator coil, and of course those are connected to the outside world. And we're going to attempt to remove the switch and see if we can't nail down where the contact problem is. Boy, great fun. Well, there's the switch, and it appears like there are a couple of the contacts that essentially lost their tension. The contacts themselves are not broken, but their ability to make contact seems to be kind of compromised. So we'll go ahead and clean things up, try retensioning, and see if we get lucky. Might also add that if anybody ever has to take one of these apart, you're going to find out that the BFO coil is really essentially in the way. You have to kind of wiggle the switch around here and there to try and make it clear the contacts that are supporting the two fixed, I should say the single fixed capacitor and resistor that you can plainly see there in front of you. And I did have to take the nut and bolt holding the board apart in order to move things around a little bit. So it's not a very easy thing to work on. I can remove everything now if I were to disconnect the or even undo the BFO control down there, but I don't need to pull that out, I don't think. We'll just extend these 3 wires and heat shrink them, and maybe even replace them down here if I can get at the contacts easily. So what a disgusting job. Anyway, we're making some headway. Hi friends, this is Pete, K7PP, and we're still fighting the good fight with the Hammarland HQ129X. And the switch I'm holding here in front of you is the mode switch that is mounted on the front panel. labeled manual, AVC, and BFO for beat frequency oscillator. The way things work is this position would be manual, straight up and down AVC, and to the right BFO. And what was happening was my BFO position was a little bit flaky. You'd move it around and the BFO would go on and off and on and off. And I really didn't want to take the switch out. It was just a real chore, but I didn't really see any recourse. After 50 years, I guess anything can go bad mechanically. So we pulled the switch out and retensioned the contacts, and voila, everything's back to normal. Except that I did notice some other unusual operations that seemed a little strange for the 129X. I discovered that the meter would peg all the way to the right in the beat frequency oscillator mode. Meter should be disabled. And I also noticed that the AVC would work in the manual mode. And also the meter operated erratically as well. So I kind of took a look at things and looked at the diagram, and all of a sudden it just kind of leapt right out at me. If you look at this switch, the B plus to the switch is supplied on this wire right here. There's a jumper, so this contact and this contact are applying B plus to this land and this land right, or this trace here and this trace here. So anyway, long story short, when you're in the BFO mode, you have B plus coming in here and traveling along here and going out this contact here. No problem. At the same time, you're supposed to be disabling the meter. But looky here, there's a jumper between this contact and the line that goes out to supply the meter. So with this jumper in, it doesn't matter whether you're in AVC mode or whether you're in BFO mode, you're going to still supply voltage to the little 470k bridge that is wrapped around the meter, the S meter. So somebody put a jumper in, and for whatever their reasons were, I don't know, but we're going to remove the jumper, and then when you switch to AVC mode, this jumper should have no connection to it at all. I mean, this land contact should have no connection at all. So that's one modification that's coming out. The other is for the AVC. Typically, the AVC will come in this line right here, and again, another jumper. Typically, in the any mode besides AVC, the AVC line is grounded. So in the AVC mode, AVC voltage here, and this contact would allow it to come out this wire here. Great. Switching to the beat frequency oscillator position, typically this black wire would be grounded, so the AVC voltage would be present here, here, and then it would be grounded like it's supposed to. In the manual mode, again, this jumper. In the manual mode, AVC voltage coming in here and travels over here and over the jumper and out. So AVC is present in the manual mode. Typically, if this jumper were not here, there would be no AVC voltage present, and in which case there should be a jumper between this point and ground. So the way it's supposed to work is ground, AVC out, and ground. So yeah, the switch was acting kind of crazy, but part of it was doing exactly the way it was set up and jumpered to act. So we're going to put it back according to the diagram, and hopefully we're going to have a meter and a BFO and a manual mode that'll work properly. So anyway, for anyone that's had one of these things apart, this probably looks real familiar to you, but my goodness, I have no idea why it was strapped that way unless it was retasked to do something else. And keep in mind that this radio also had a Jones plug on the back with 9 connections on it, and I do suspect that he either had an outboard sideband slicer or maybe an outboard product detector, who knows. But at any rate, this switch has been out of the radio before and has been rejumpered to do different things. Whoa, what an interesting situation. Anyway, I'm going to put brand new wires on this and try and stuff it back into the can and see how many parts I've got left over. Wish me luck. Well, we're back out in the shop again, and we're working on the switch that switches ABC, BFO, and manual. And we got new wires put on. This red one is the main B plus supply, and the striped wire right here is used for the meter, and the yellow wire over here is used for the beat frequency oscillator, and then the AVC part of it, the AVC, this thick green wire coming right here, ends up going up to the different RF amps and IF amps, carries the AVC voltage up there. And this black wire is the jumper that goes between disabling the manual side for the AVC and the BFO side for the AVC. And then this other green wire right here goes to the AVC supply, which comes off the 6H6 dual diode. So we've got all the wires here, and if you can believe it, I even marked them on the schematic. So the next guy that gets into this radio will be able to take a look and figure out what it was I did. Anyway, we'll try and stuff this back in there, but I've got to lengthen out these wires right here from the beat frequency oscillator coil, and then I think we're ready to go. And we're just getting ready to stuff the switch back into the can. I'd like everybody to notice that I've got the gaskets on and the lock washer, so I'm aiming not to have any leftover parts. Well, with about 15 minutes of horsing around, we've got the switch in there without damaging anything. And now we're going to try and see if we can't remount it onto the receiver and start hooking up wires. We've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wires. Yeah, about 8 wires to hook up. No parts left over. Lock washers, everything seems to be where it's supposed to be. And I guess that's our cue to put this back together. And I just wanted to include this as we go along. We're just getting the transformer and switches mounted again, and I just wanted to comment that if you ever have a chance to do this, try and pass it up. Talk about labor intensive, my goodness. And we've got the BFO wired up, and next is the switch. I guess it's not so bad if you take it one step at a time, huh? Okay, and we're hooking up the B plus wire, which is red, that supplies B plus to either the meter bridge or the beat frequency oscillator. So we've got the switch mounted down here, and we've got our test leads hooked up, and we're going with manual, AVC, and beat frequency oscillator. So when we're in BFO, we're supplying B plus to the beat frequency oscillator. Looks good. Well, we're getting down to the most important part here. Okay, I've got one end of my lead on the B plus over by the regulator, and I should be getting B plus right here. And looks like I am. Okay, that's if there were B plus. And then over here, this little lead right here is the lead that goes up to the meter. So I'm in manual mode, and there's no B plus going to the meter. Here's AVC mode. I've got B plus going to the meter, and there's BFO mode, no B plus going to the meter. Yay! Alright, looks pretty good. Okay, and the final wires are hooked up. The AVC line, this green wire right down here should give me continuity to AVC on the other side of the radio, which it does. And one right next to it, the junction of the capacitor and the resistors. If I can get on this thing, there we go. That one, there we go. That one should be the output of the AVC. So when I'm in manual, I should have nothing. And when I have AVC, switch to AVC position. If I can find it, there we go. I've got AVC. And when I have manual, I've got nothing. I'm wiggling the thing too because I had an intermittent switch, but there we go. AVC from manual, and then over to BFO. No AVC. And if we can go one step further, I should have a ground on either side. So we'll set that up and measure that too. Okay, now we're measuring the main feed to the AVC, and I'm in AVC mode here, so when I switch to manual, it's ground like it should be. This is AVC, and now BFO, and that's ground. I think we're there, folks. All done. And it looks like the area even got cleaned up a little bit too with the new wiring. I'll probably put some tie wraps down there and kind of dress it up a little bit. Or maybe I should not press my luck. Okay, so anyway, we're all done with the rewiring of the switch and hooking up the BFO. Everything seems to check out and be according to the diagram now. So as soon as we get the front panel put on, we'll give it a try. Well, I just can't wait to put the cabinet on. So I've got everything all test clip lead up here, and I've got the meter sitting up here, and I don't know if we'll be able to see it or not, but meter works, goes over, comes down, and we're getting audio. Cool. And we'll see if we get a station. Yes. Okay. AVC works. And beat frequency oscillator works. And the meter quits when I turn it on, which is what it's supposed to do. And it should quit when I go to manual, which it does. And I'll try the RF gain control here. Oops, wrong knob. Here we go. There we go. I can back it off and clean it up. So it looks like the manual works too. Turn the manual all the way up, it overloads. Yeah, I expect that. And then go to AVC, and the AVC works. I do believe we got a winner here. Looks like the BFO and the switch work exactly like they're supposed to. Excuse me while I go pat myself on the back. Okay, well, we're taking some quick shots of the 129X receivers, and I thought I'd put the one that we were recently working on next to the one that we finished up earlier this year, and there's a little bit of a physical look difference, but nonetheless they're both 129s. I'm still waiting for a little bit of hardware for the current unit to go on the front panel, but for the most part we're there. It works really well. The alignment's been done, and I'll have a separate video on that down the road. And essentially all we need to do is get our panel hardware in and trot it up to the ham shack and pair it up with the AM transmitter it's going to be sitting next to, and hopefully we can do a video with the unit actually in operation. But there you have it, HQ129X, and I think we're going to have an awful lot of fun with it.